And welcome back, everybody. Over there across the pond, that is Rish, looking pretty relaxed.
And he's rolling.
And yeah, that is our guest star, Kaiser, German Shepherd in service with the US flag. You're pretty relaxed, Rish, but a couple of moments ago, before we started this particular session, you were using terminology that will easily get a channel banned on the less agreeable social media. Um, how about a quick wrap up? What's happening? What got you a bit in the groove, and how and why that came down to you?
Well, it involves Russia.
Well,
As
that's one of the features.
a reoccurring theme. Um, so prisoner swap. Joe Biden, not a very good general manager. We just made a horrible trade. We gave away Patrick Mahomes for Baker Mayfield. For those outside of the US, that is a National Football League reference. And it was a terrible trade. So, an American by the name of Brittany Griner was arrested and just served 10 months for bringing hashish oil into the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation, Brittany Griner is, for those who don't know, is a member of the WNBA, which is the Women's National Basketball Association League here in America. She is also a lesbian woman, and she is a woman of color of African American descent. Russia has some very strict drug laws. They also do not recognize the LGBTQ plus community, as is evident by the last Olympics that were held there, where there were extreme protests. So I'm upset for a couple of reasons. Now, I am happy that Brittany Griner is back in the US and with her wife, but the fact that I only knew about this situation due to American media is extremely disturbing, because through this, I learned that there is a decorated Marine veteran who is still over there to this day, and his only crime was going to a wedding where Russia decided that he was committing espionage, and he is in prison. And there's also another Caucasian male who did the exact same thing as Brittany Griner. He brought medically prescribed cannabis products, which is highly illegal in the Russian Federation, as they are a sovereign nation. Disagree with their politics as I do. They are a nation. They get to decide their own laws. So he was also detained. But the only reason that I know about the only reason that I know about the Marine is because Brittany Griner. And it shocks me as an American that she got more press footage than a decorated Marine got. And I'm struggling to find out why the US traded when there should have been 3 people released, and we released one, they released one. We gave them someone called the Merchant of Death. That was actually portrayed by Nicolas Cage in the movie Lord of War. The person that we gave them for this WNBA star was someone who sold missiles to terrorist organizations to kill Americans. To me, it seems like we could have made a better trade. And as I'm seeing because in the West, we have access to all media. So I can see Chinese media. Chinese cannot see our media because it's highly, censored and everything. Same as Russia. The Russians are laughing at us. They're saying that American values we would rather take a member of the LGBTQ plus community, a member of national athletics, an athlete, instead of a, a decorated Marine who's falsely imprisoned. And I can't say this enough. Anytime that an American is brought back to our soil, I salute that. Truly, I do. But if we're going to be making deals and everything that comes before but is what we call bullshit, that was a bad trade. We should have got more. Why are there Americans in gulags and labor camps abroad who did nothing wrong and we couldn't get them as part of the trade? For the merchant of death. Like, what the fuck are we doing? We're losing so much political capital. We're losing our position in the world standing. We're just out here taking loss after loss while Joe Biden sits there licking an ice cream cone looking like he's about to fall asleep. The fuck is going on?
Now, with this kind of explanation, I totally see where you're coming from. And looking at what you're saying, I have even more problems with this kind of trade. First of all, the biggest thing for me now, after what you said, I have a problem with the idea of making this a trade. Yeah. So especially in terms of you're saying, I don't know the story. I mean, obviously it would be more prominent in the States because he's not a German soldier, he's a Marine. And
I didn't even know that he was in prison because the reason I know why he exists is because of the Brittany Griner story. How did a decorated Marine be imprisoned by a foreign nation under false pretenses of espionage, and it went unheard for years? But I only know about this because someone
by chance, yeah. I'm with you. This is a thing where I need to question how we do things. Yeah, and number one, why don't we know about this, or why do we know about this and don't communicate our displeasure publicly? Now, let's stay with the Brittany Griner thing. First of all, no doubt that she broke the law. Okay, there's no two ways to view this. Okay, should she have known? Yes. So apparently she was playing basketball in Russia before. And look, this is a typical kind of thing that goes on with countries such as Russia or China. She could probably do that 20 times a year, but at some point Vladimir Putin gets pissed off with the Americans, and here we go, Brittany Griner comes again, brings something that she's not supposed to bring, yeah, or trying to take something out she's not supposed to take out, and boom, here we go, we can get back at the Americans. So this is really like, that is the second thing why I am seeing this very, very much like you. This is basically having an opportunity to create leverage. And both countries that we regularly talk about, Russia and China, have in the past and still continue to do this using the imprisonment under questionable circumstances of foreign nationals to gain leverage over those nations. A big story that has been across the media was the arrest of those two Canadian Michaels in the aftermath of this Ma Wangzhou case. Yeah. So it has been first of all due process in Canada. They didn't just give us or the Americans a woman they arrested that was wanted for crimes or for an investigation into crimes, a person of interest questioning, whatever, yeah? They followed due process. As an immediate knee-jerk reaction, 2 Canadian nationals were arrested and imprisoned. Half a year later, we are charging them with espionage. This is how long it took the Chinese authorities to come up with something they can charge you with. And when this story came down, I actually looked a bit more into this, and I found out that this is a regular occurrence, that foreign nationals are arrested just because the authorities can. And they are charged weeks or months later with some bullshit accusations, and this is how I learned the term. And this is a real crime in China. Attention, this is a real crime in China. Causing trouble and picking fights. That is a real crime in China. And you can charge anyone with that. Yeah, you go out on the street, you get charged because somebody wants to. Now, why am I opposed to this kind of trade? Fundamentally, it says we are ready to deal with these kind of people, do business with these kind of people.
With terrorists.
I wouldn't immediately use this term. We are talking about several nations, but the sentiment is the same. I totally agree with you. So that's the 2 things why I am opposed to this kind of thing. And believe it or not, this is a constant ongoing discussion I have with many people, and most of them agree. The source of the problem is we, the Americans, Joe Biden, the American government, is handling these situations from our point of view. Yeah. And that point of view comes across exactly like you say. Joe Biden, the Americans, the West is weak. That is the message these countries receive, and obviously they're going to use it again.
At us.
Yeah. So now, completely unfiltered, what would actually work? Viewing this situation like the Russians or the Chinese do, in terms of Ms. Griner, what would, if the roles were reversed, what would the Russians have done? They would have arrested a random American. So why can we or the Americans not arrest a random Russian? Preferably someone Vladimir Putin wants back. Because we don't do that kind of thing.
No, we're trying to maintain the illusion of the moral high ground. And I call it an illusion because it is one. Because we've done despicable, horrible things to smaller nations.
Yep. Look, I'm totally with you.
We do shit like this all the time. This is just in everyone's mainstream news. But a loss is a loss. This was a bad trade.
Yep. Even if you boil it down to a simple trade transaction, yeah, which again, I'm going back to that. I think it is absolutely dehumanizing that our governments are looking at this in terms of we give you one, you give us one, in a form of trade. No. And this is some kind of thing. Let's see how this Ma Wang-Zhou case worked out. After over a year, Ma Wang-Zhou was released, not to the US to be questioned for a crime she may or may not be involved in. The agreement apparently is she will be questioned later. Yeah, later. When is later? That's not a time frame I can put in a legal document. Fact is, she's not answering any kind of questions that American authorities have, and she never will. I can say that right now, she never will. Unless we get her out of China illegally. She will not answer the questions, period. So weeks or even months later, the Michaels were released. Not before, they were sentenced and imprisoned for espionage, causing trouble, picking fights, disturbing the social harmony of China, basically anything they want to put on you. And really, this is a situation where I'm saying we keep approaching these transactions or this engagement with one nation, between two nations, from our what you called moral high ground point of view. And it is not working. I said over 2 years ago, I said China, or we recognized the People's Republic of China as the representative of Chinese people, or the Chinese government, that Chinese government for representative of Chinese people in 1972, yeah, or when Nixon went over officially. So, and the German position has been in this engagement with China. Change will occur when we continue to engage with China, when we understand China. And I think it is pretty obvious to every single German, this has not worked.
China.
It's the same thing with Russia. It's the same thing because the underlying authority comes from the same viewpoint. So when you look at Russia, the situation we just know more about. But we have this illusion or delusion in the West that Russia can be a democratic, open country with due process. Yeah, just like what we assume our countries are like in the West. Now, when we look at Russian history, whether it's Imperial Russia, Soviet Union, or the Russian Federation after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the years under Yeltsin and the early Putin years are basically, you can go back all the way to the 1300s. Those 8, 10, 15 years in the 90s and early 2000s is the only time Russia represented something like a democracy with due process. This is literally less than 1% of the time modern Russia has existed. And in my opinion, it is beggars belief, a completely foolish idea that all of a sudden the Russians have seen democracy, they have seen the light, and they will be like us. No. There is, it's actually a great explanation from a former intelligence officer in the Finnish army. He studied Russian history, particularly this part of history and why Russia cannot be a democracy. And he's using modern Russia or contemporary Russia as an example. Is 150 years ago you had the Tsar, today you have Putin. 150 years ago you had the upper echelons of the officers' corps and the clergy. Putin has his oligarchs. Yeah, I can't hear you. Yeah. And really, what has changed is the personnel, but not the complete setup. The system is the same. So these the democratic progress after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, that is an illusion. Yeah, it hasn't fundamentally changed anything. And we doing business as if we are dealing with a democracy that is just the same as us, approaching this matter with our, what you call moral high ground, is just going to lead to disappointment. And when I going back to the Chinese situation now, it is very obvious to see that both sides are disappointed at the situation right now for different reasons, obviously. But it shows me that this kind of engagement between two, yeah, antipodes, really, in many cases, just is not going to work beyond a purely transactional exchange. So, for example, Russia, we want oil, this is what we are paying. No, okay, we go somewhere else. And yes, I mean that in terms of if we really still want to do business with the Russians, which, hey, if you don't want to, that's fine.
Don't.
So really, this is the other side, not and exactly like you were giving me the middle, showing me the middle finger right now.
That
What
was
will no, yeah, no, I totally I understand. And
not the people, their leadership.
that's I mean that's another topic we need to cut into, but this gesture is exactly how we need to approach this kind of relation. Take it or leave it. And it is unfortunate
If you're
from
going
our
to take all high ground, then you cannot compromise in key situations. Otherwise, you look like a fucking hypocrite. You
totally
look
with you.
like you have no
You
resolve.
are
You look like you lack the willingness to follow through on what you bill yourself as.
exactly what I'm going right now. If you want to achieve this kind of moral situation based on morality, you need to be prepared to actually enforce it with very questionable means from your point of view.
You need to
But
be prepared to follow through and deal with the consequences and the repercussions of the actions you take to proliferate your morals and what you perceive yourself to be and what you want people to perceive you
exactly,
as. If you're not willing to do
exactly.
that, then you fail on every single front. It's
It's
all
absolutely with you
or
there.
nothing. There is no gray area in this matter. That is my opinion. Point blank. Shut the door. Fucking mic drop.
And that you see, funny enough, this is what seems to be happening in the relation with China. The latest numbers, the latest official numbers, exports from China have dropped by 40%. Let that sink in for a moment. And this is exactly a situation like you said. You need to be prepared to walk away if your morals are going to be compromised. And
Deal with the consequences of your fucking actions.
well, part of the supply chain problems are because we are moving the supply chain out of China. And look, I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. When I'm looking at, again, this is, as you are saying, we are not dealing people to people here. We are dealing government to government. And
But if
that is the,
you're going to draw a line in the sand and that sand goes across a hill, you have to be willing to defend that hill, to defend that line that you say, this is the line. Nothing passes this point. If
yeah,
you're going to make that, you have to be willing to die on that hill. You have to be willing to fight for that hill. You have to be willing to go over the wire, over into their side and fight for it on their terms, in their country, in their beliefs. If
I
they're
think
going to change everything that you believe and think. You have to be willing to do the same to them. If you put a line in the sand and you say, this is the
You
line,
just said
we
absolutely the right thing.
we will not tolerate anything beyond this point, and they try to cross
And
it, you have
we need to stand for that. And
push the
you're saying it
fucking
absolutely right. And that hard no that hard no is exactly what we need, and what we are doing with the situation with China. So when I see we can live with those consequences. So let's just say consequences for us.
them. They can't live without us.
Exactly.
Certain people have forgotten these facts, and these facts are truth.
So when I look at that, the problems in the Chinese economy are now because number one, their real estate sector is essentially a Ponzi scheme, and it's collapsed. So that's 30% of GDP gone. And the Chinese economy is not based on domestic consumption. They are not like Americans. Yeah, we buy some shit. Yeah.
No,
The Chinese economy, yeah, the Chinese economy is basically we make cheap shit for others.
Refusing to manufacture things under their current working conditions because they're fucking deplorable. And now they're drawing their own line in the sand. That's why when I say fuck Russia, fuck China, I don't mean fuck the people of Russia. I mean fuck their leadership. I don't say fuck China and say I have a problem with the Chinese people. I have no problem with the Chinese people whatsoever. Actually, take it 180, I support them rioting. I support them standing up for their rights. I support anyone who is willing to fight for basic human rights. So when I bash on the Chinese government, it's not China. When I bash on Russia, I'm bashing their government. I'm not bashing the people. I'm always for the people.
Is that I again totally with you on that. And it is when I see the situation right now, there were some incidents over the last week, and the response from the Chinese government was, and I can only describe it as howling. So you see, when you don't have an argument, you fire out sound bites, and those official statements, it's basically a bullshit bingo of sound bites that is completely devoid of fact, completely against the reality, and it tells me the leadership and their spokespeople have completely run out of rope here. Out of road. They don't know how to deal with the situation. On top of that, as you are saying, Chinese people are now taking to the streets, rioting. We haven't seen this since Tiananmen.
But they're rioting, protesting, and fighting for basic human rights.
Exactly.
Food, water, shelter, liberty.
So
these things that are supposed to be given to anyone as a member of our species, Homo sapiens. These are basic, unequivocal rights that should be afforded to every man, woman, and child, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or anything else you come up with. These are basic human rights. And if any of those basic human rights are being taken away from anyone, regardless of their situation, that is oppression.
Absolutely. And to me, it looks like, on one hand, the Chinese government has absolutely no idea how to deal with this external situation with us. They have no idea how to deal with the internal situation with people taking to the streets. And it's not gonna end with lifting of the lockdowns, because you can lift the lockdown all you want. Number one, you still need to hide the numbers from the COVID infection, which is more and more impossible, you still don't get the foreign investment back. Foreign money and experts are fleeing China. There is no other word for it.
As they should.
Well, I'm all for it. You see, I mean that's a totally different topic. Just for me as a thing, I can't understand anyone that is foreign national that is still in China. You're getting blamed on a daily basis for things the government fucked up. And at some point, you got to say yourself, you are not going to win any contest or friendships here. So you can't get your money out. So why are you doing this? The only one benefiting from this situation is a government that at this point you can only despise. If you are in this situation that you support such a government that not only has been exposed that as lying, I don't even want to go in the situation really, but at some point you need to say it's enough, and you need to what you said. You need to draw that line in the sand. Stop.
And stick to your guns. Don't move the line back because it's politically favorable. Don't change your stance because it's the new passing fad. Pick your battles, draw the line, and fucking hold it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Russian situation, we haven't heard of widespread unrest. So the only thing that comes close, what I have been following, is that people having a hard time leaving because every male is potentially a conscript for being sent to Ukraine. And
we actually had our first 2 Russians who, I mean, the balls on these guys. They got into a small fishing craft and crossed the Bering Sea to seek asylum on one of the Alaskan islands. I mean, that takes some fucking balls.
I mean, you're talking about a situation, just for the understanding. At the closest, Russia and Alaskan USA is like 3 or 4 kilometers apart, the Diomede Islands, yeah? And you can, in winter, you can actually walk from one island to the other, but nonetheless, what I see is that people start to stand up for themselves in both Russia and in China. And my anticipation is the situation is much worse than what we know, but there is still a lot of foreign correspondents and Chinese people that want to get these news out to us, saying, yes, we started to fight back. This is our country. We got to take it back. And in Russia, we don't have that privilege. We could and should probably have engaged with the Russians even more than what we have with China. But the other side of the story is we have not effected change in either country. So that's another reason, going back to what we said earlier on, why any kind of exchange needs to happen on our terms. Because in both Russian leadership and Chinese leadership, within their mindset, there is win and lose. There is not, let's work together for creating something better. There's win, there's lose. And in this kind of binary situation, we don't want to be the people that keep in the Russian eyes or in the Chinese eyes keep losing. Because then at some point we come to the situation.
We're giving them legitimacy.
Yeah. And worse than that, to end this on a situation, we are doing this kind of thing. We are negotiating with Putin what parts of the Ukraine he can keep. None.
None.
Yeah. how much of Russia are you giving away for this fuck up? So no, really, this is a kind of situation where I'm having a hard time, even now, after what I have seen, what I have learned when I started to look into these situations more due to my own experience. I'm having a hard time saying, fuck them. Let's build, as a German, this is a very dangerous thought, I think, but the advantage of the Berlin Wall was every German, East or West, always knew which side is the good side. It's my own, and the other side is bad. So it was a much easier situation. And I am not advocating for the division within a nation as it happens in our Western societies or between nations. But when push comes to shove, in terms of how are we going to run this planet, really.
Now, one thing that I'd like to propose as a future episode is a lot of the videos that I watch show these, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, show these massive countries that are coming together. I actually think it's going the other way. I think with the rise of nationalism, I think countries are actually going to splinter and start breaking apart to smaller countries, and we'll have more diversity in the United Nations, but less diversity among single countries as they divide themselves as they choose. Spain's a great one, a great example with the regions there. Russia could potentially implode. China could definitely break up. There's a chance, if the U.S. wanted to break it down, there's at least 5 distinct regions of the U.S.
I saw a similar video. Yes.
That might be worth an episode.
Well, it's definitely worth talking about, because not only do I see the scenario you are talking about, I also can see logically the other scenario. Yeah. But as you said, that's for another episode. And either way, and I think that is a good note for the end. I am the first one to advocate that we should treat each other better as human beings, that we should stand up for other human beings. And particularly when other human beings are living in abhorrent conditions. Rish, I have seen people in China live in caves, literally. I have seen where Chinese and Russian YouTubers are showing their surroundings. This is how I live. Yeah, I always find that interesting. How do actual real people live in another country? What do they do on a daily basis? What do they think? Yeah, and you see these people are no different. They have the same hopes and dreams that you and me do. And I find it absolutely unacceptable that we promote the oppression and the exploitation of people like you and me. And it doesn't matter where they live and what they look like.
Is as a species, because I am a supremacist. I am a Homo sapiens supremacist. I am for the procreation of the human race. And if we ever stop oppressing ourselves, killing each other, and ever come together, we will populate the entire galaxy. We will do great things. We have the ability to end suffering. We have the ability to feed everyone. We have the ability to go to other places and potentially meet other species and help them technologically. We have all of these things. within us, but also within us, we have this unabrided, undenied, just obsession with keeping each other down and finding new and exciting ways to kill people, kill ourselves, our own species, in the most fantastic of ways, the most horrific of ways. And if we can ever turn that off, there'll be no cap on what we could achieve together as a species.
And on that note, I reckon that if that day ever comes, we gonna barbecue right outside your place.
Bring whatever your religion allows, beef, pork, or chicken. We'll put it on the barbecue.
You heard it. That is in the States for the United States, my friend Rish.
Also can bring, Rish loves fish. Bring fish, bring shell food. We'll boil them up.
You heard it from him. That's the man. That's Rish. I'm Roland. And we all gonna see you on the next video.